We're standing on one of the most iconic buildings in Los Angeles, the LAX Control Tower. Around me you can see airplanes coming in, you can see them departing and going to all corners of the world. How they get to where they're meant to be at LAX is an intriguing story, and I'll show and tell you if you come with me right now as we discover an inside look at the LAX Control Tower. We're talking with Sherry Avery, the manager of the LAX Control Tower. The public really isn't allowed here, but it's absolutely fascinating. So give us a brief overview of what the LAX Control Tower is and does.
Our responsibility starts about 8 miles east and ends about 2 miles west. Now, generally, the way the traffic flows around here, when I say east and west, 95% of the time the wind blows from the west. That means airplanes take off and land to the west. And it's because when you're landing, you need the wind blowing towards you to slow you down, and when you're taking off, you need the lift to help you become airborne. So 5% of the time, people will see airplanes turned around. They call it going the wrong way, and they'll take off and land to the east. And one other thing we do to be noise friendly, every night at midnight, they take off toward the west over the water, and they land from over the water. So even if they're coming in from the east, they circle around and land over the water to keep it quieter. That's till 6:30 in the morning.
Delays in another part of the country and then flights are canceled. What sort of problems, if any, does that give places like Los Angeles where it's sunny for most of the year?
Yes, it is interesting. It has a ripple effect. Many times there'll be delays that have nothing to do with where you are. It's getting to be where winter and summer, starting from about Chicago east, and now we have Atlanta, where they had 2 snowstorms and places were closed for 3-4 days. So LA and Phoenix and Las Vegas, who really don't have very much weather, suffer the same kind of delay sometimes because their airplanes can't get to JFK or can't get to Atlanta.
A lot of articles I've read about that.
Now, the way it works, we have 4 parallel runways. There's 2 on the south side of the terminal and 2 on the north side. So depending on which side your airplane is coming in on, you will talk to a person who's going to clear your pilot to land. And then a ground controller will take the airplane and taxi to either to the gate or close to the gate, and then it might be another ground controller finishing the trip on ground. It's a very difficult airport because it's small geographically. Example, 3,000 acres of taxiways and runways here to run 600-some thousand operations a year. So we run all these airplanes in just a little bit of room. That's what makes it complex. And another interesting thing is the A380s. We started out with 1 Qantas A380 in 2007. Another thing that makes it complicated to work here is that because it's so compressed, the space, every time one lands or takes off, there's an airport vehicle that follows it to make sure that the wingtips are clear of anything else. And even more interestingly, every time one takes off, they sweep the runway. They do a runway check to check for debris because it's so big. It's so powerful that it kicks up all kinds of things, and they need to make sure that the runway is safe for the next arrival or departure. When they created the A380, there's another kind of aircraft that is in the same, what they call group. They group them according to size, wingspan, tail height. So now the latest and greatest, the A380 and the 747-800, those are called Group 6. We have our new international terminal, and that was to accommodate all the new larger airplanes.
I think that I found most interesting, and I wrote on all 3 press strips of A380s that came in here, the thing that I found fascinating was the fact that we boarded it over at the West Imperial Terminal. We were all waiting for this huge plane to come, and suddenly it appeared, and none of us heard it. I mean, that is a very quiet airplane.
Yes, it is, and that's good for the community also.
A lot of pilots come from the military, and I guess there's some airlines that train them. Is there a school for controllers?
We have a lot of controllers who had military controlling experience. I mean, to come to a place like this, that's the best help. When I was hiring people years ago, I would try and get people who had worked at busy military places like Miramar in San Diego and Luke Air Force Base in Phoenix, things like that, because they had already worked with jets and they knew about volume and rapidly changing situations. There have been controller schools. It's called a CTI, Controller Training Initiative, and certain schools had controller training programs. I think there were 20 or 30 across the country, so they exist today where you can get a degree in aviation and learn about air traffic control as well.
Working at LAX, is that the sort of pinnacle of pinnacles?
I think it's very exciting. I mean, just telling you that we have the most A380 flights in the entire country is just...
Really?
Yeah, well, it used to be where we were in competition with JFK. We passed JFK months ago, most in the country, and the least amount of room to house them. Well, when I learned to fly, there were not many female pilots, and I was trying to make a decision back in the 70s about whether to go into air traffic control or whether to become an airline pilot. Nowadays, probably a quarter of my controllers here are female. It's certainly different. I mean, when I was first a radar controller at Burbank Airport, it was me and 42 guys. We're talking in the late 70s. Things are different now. It's much more equalized, many, many more females, and so the opportunities are there. I love my job. I think it's the best job in the world. I love the people who work for me, the controllers and the supervisors and all the staff at LAX are amazing. Such a talented group of people. I'm honored to work with them.
Well, here we are in the control tower, and it seems so peaceful and quiet.
They make it look easy. It's very, very organized, and everybody has a function. And that's why they make it look easy. They're so good at what they do. If you look to the left, these controllers on the left side here, they are controlling the 2 runways and taxiways on the north side of the airport. There's a parallel set of controllers on the south side, and they deal with just the airplanes that are on the south. And then the supervisors in the middle, there's people who deal with flow control, people reading clearances to pilots. Everybody has their function here, and that's why they make it look easy. They're so good at what they do.
So now you know when you arrive or come into Los Angeles International Airport. John Clayton, our armchair traveler. Thanks for watching.